Good afternoon, everyone. This is Farha, and today we will be, in fact, teaching and learning is a part of leadership. So, today's topic is effective leadership for educational learning. So, before we dive into the details of the topic or when we start with the flow, just that education is such a hub or a place where teaching and learning goes hand in hand. And I think this is a place, teaching and learning is from cradle to grave for everyone. But if you see in an educational setup, in an educational hub, when it is going hand in hand, it is one of the best reasons why leadership can not only be practiced as a separate entity, but can be demonstrated to the next generation. So that is why the word I have used is effective leadership. Now, effective leadership will contribute when the student is actually seeing you lead it. So we are going to have that part as well in our webinar today. So moving to first is who are the leaders? If you see when we are talking about the educational setup, we have always leaders are seen as the senior or someone who has the authority or of a similar sort, right? And if you see here, I would like to have a basic distinction between a boss and a leader. Boss is always the person who will command or demand you to do things. But a leader will always demonstrate, walk the path, right? So that is very, very important to know the right definition of a leader. And in the educational setup, the leadership is not only there at a middle or a seniority level, but it is across the diverse group, across the different levels of the setup, whatever we have, right? For example, if you begin your journey of your career, maybe you come as a homeroom teacher of lower grade or as an assistant professor, somewhere you are beginning the journey. The best part is you are a leader even there. So it is not that we are only focusing to the mid seniority level or a high seniority level, but it is all across. In fact, as I began, we are also including the students for the leadership. So this is how we are talking about the effective leadership for educational learning, which is not only we are talking in terms of uh, administration, but also when we are talking about the pedagogies, the different types of study area which we are covering. It could be class instructional method, it could be pedagogical method, or other types of method, but the leadership is going to be very, very effective all across the educational setup. Now, how do great leaders begin? Because when we are talking about the effective leadership, you should have a leader. And in our case, I just mentioned that everyone is a leader. So, how do great leaders induce others to inspire great actions? So, your leadership or your actions inspire others to do the same with same enthusiasm. That is the concept of golden circle, which is my favorite part And I have adopted this part from my favorite author, Simon Sinek. I think you should all read this book. If you are aware, well and good. If you're not aware, this is worth looking at. Now, if you see, people, they begin with what? And they go next level to how, and then why. This idea explains that usually on the superficial thing, we all think that the idea of what is important. So if you see a school, when it is showcasing its, uh, maybe you are showcasing some photographs to your parents, or when the publishers will come and market things to the school, here all the leadership will matter. So we all think superficially it is coming as a what. What is school offering? What curriculum? What is the strength of the school? Right? These kind of what questions are coming. But it is not in the same way. We think that we are selling, we are teaching, we are using what to connect to people. And then we go with the big lesson plans. Then we go with the big administrative part that we have to follow these things. I don't say that they are not important. They are important. But the idea here is why it becomes effective is when we are connecting with that why. What's your purpose? When we connect this, our leadership becomes effective. And that's how we inspire action in the educational setup. Now, this idea is based or is embedded in our biology. I'm not talking about psychology, but biology. You mark the words I'm using is biology. If you see the cross section of our brain, you will see that the brain is exactly having the section as the middle portion and the cortex portion. I think bio teachers would relate to this more. If you see all your decision making and your rational thinking, your senses are all related in the cortex part of the brain. And there is a striking similarity between this and the golden circle what. That's why what is placed on the outside of the circle, because it is exactly our brain. Now surgery is neuroscience is on the peak, right? So all the rational thinking is happening on the cortex, and that is why it is on the outer layer. But when you want to trust someone, you really, really go to the midsection of your brain. Those thinking, those nerves are located in the center of the brain. And that is where you spark your motivation, not only to your students, but to your staff and to the support staff and to the other co-workers you have. When you realize your why, so great leaders, they will always begin with why. And that is where our effectiveness is located. That why should be very, very strong. If you see your why, I mean, if you talk examples of Wright brothers, you talk about great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi or any leader which you may be following, which you may be admiring, which you are inspired, they will have a very, very strong why. So we are coming back to this golden circle. Sometimes you just say it doesn't feel right because the why is shattered there. Now, how am I integrating this in my leadership at school? No matter which level you belong to. You have just started your career, or maybe you are at a seniority level. How are we supposed to integrate this in our curriculum, in our daily practices? If you are a teacher and you have a why, which is very, very clear, that will reflect in your teaching practices. And your things would be ready beforehand. Same way, if you are a coordinator, maybe a vice principal or a principal, if your why is very, very strong, I think that is going to reflect in your actions. You will be proactive before the teacher. Is that not, which is what, but your why is reflecting in the what. That is how effective your actions become. I'm talking about a very simple action, but it does reflect. If you are an administrator in the school, it will work same way. So this is not for a single thing or a person. This is a very universal aspect which we are talking about, regardless of what position you build in. We all think, act, and communicate in the same way. And in the educational setup, we have this case study, which has, this is a, there is this a newsletter from New Zealand, which is called as Educational Leaders. Now, in this case study, they have seen that the teaching and the learning process is enhanced when you have a great leaders, and the students, they directly absorb this effective leadership from the people around them. And this case study one is from Wellington Girls College, as you can see. And she had this student leadership project. Okay. And they had this intensive curriculum implementation of some, it could be XYZ, whatever was the topic. And they saw that the teacher, they had exhibited a great leadership quality in the focus of pedagogy. Now, pedagogy is how you are teaching, right? So we are talking about that how, what, but. But they had this great why, that leadership quality, the why was very, very strong. And because of which the trust developed among the staff during the project was absorbed by the students, because the collaboration between different co-workers was absorbed by the students, and it reflected in their leadership projects. And then they all realized they were working on pedagogy, but then they realized, yes, the leadership, what they were exhibiting, was effective, and it culminated into the exhibition style of the student. And this is the professional learning which they had absorbed from the entire setup. So we are coming to the part where we are making students feel that the why is strong. And when exactly why we need the entire educational system is student centered approach. And when we want the big changes to happen, we want to start with why. So when your why is clear, when your why is strong, it is reflected in students why as well. So I want to say that making your why strong is not only a part of effective leadership on your level, but you are inspiring an entire next generation to have a very strong why. And that's when you realize that your leadership is very, very, very effective. How do you see? So that is your feedback. So when we talk about effective leadership, we also talk about the feedback, right? That is how the next level we are going to. The role of the leadership in the educational system. Now, if you see, it's a cycle, right? We all know that we do an action, we take a feedback, and then we correct it and put it back into our action, right? So, this is one of the things that I'm coming back to my why. So, I'm improving my what, right? I'm improving my what by taking the feedback and I'm feeding it right into my why. So my why is pretty much constant every time. But where am I taking the feedback? In my what and how part. So that the next time my why becomes even more strong. Right? And the priority, I'm not saying how and what is not important, they are also important. But when you work, when you begin with why, your how and what will also be very, very effective. So, one example I would love to quote from my experience is that we had a sports day, we all of us do have. And this is very common seen. Some students, some learners, they are very excited because sports is their arena. And other students whose sports is like a mediocre level, they are not so excited for the sports day. And we saw few students, they are not so excited for the sports because they know that they are not going to win anyways. One of the child was really sad and never would participate in any of the competition, sports specifically. Now, this child, when was seen, was just loitering around. Everybody is much more interested in participation. This child is not really ready to participate. That time, we as teachers are looking at this child. Okay, this child is, you know, not so interested, not so inspired. What can be done? So the teachers, it was a very spontaneous action. It was not pre-planned. The teachers, they gathered towards the child, included that child in writing the score on the scoreboard. So we have this house system. So whenever any house is winning, that house is very cheerful. Okay, somebody's winning something and those points will go to that house. So we have 4 different houses. Same way, like all the schools do have that. And this child is given this responsibility of the scoreboard because she is not participating enthusiastically. And the teachers, when the teachers, where they are on the dais there and coming and going to and fro from the sports area back to that scoreboard, the teachers decided that we are going to really cheer the losing team, okay, not the winning team, so that the spirit of the child is raised to a higher level. And whenever any house would not win, the teachers would cheer for them. It's a very simple act, but all the teachers came together on that simple concept of why. And while writing the scoreboard, the child realized that whenever once, twice, thrice, fourth time, fifth time, the child is realizing that whenever I'm not writing any score for that particular house, the teachers are really cheering them up. Oh, it is okay to fail. The child suddenly said that I would like to participate now. And all the teachers were really looking into each other's eyes to see the success of the collaboration they had done on a very spontaneous thing. And finally, the child participated not in the running or athletic games, but in the volleyball game, which is usually happening at the last of the sports day. Now, the thing is here, and the child was very free to play, irrespective whether the child is failing or winning, whatever. Now, this is an example of why are we doing what we are doing. This is an example of an effective leadership on a personal note. We are ensuring the diverse capability of the student, and we are making our why very strong. So that is one of the things where we can be very, very effective. It is not only in enlisting such narrations, but personally, each one of us will feel that when your why is strong, everything is strong. If you see any part of the life, we think, we act, we communicate in the same way, and we connect with the why. And that is how the effective leaders manage. And to end this topic of effective leadership, I just want to give an example of the tools which we are using. I'll use the whiteboard behind me. Have to grow a plant. Okay. I'm not sure if it is visible. If I want to grow a plant, okay, what are the things I need? I need energy or the manpower, right? Plus the tools. It could be a rake, it could be anything, right? And these two will give me my plant. When the energy, a good energy is combined with good tools, I will have a very nice plant. So if I keep my students as a plant, and energy, that is a manpower, as my teachers, and my resources as tools, I think the leadership is mistaken as tools. If you do not have great tools, but if your why is really, really strong, this will not matter. This will not matter for this. So, whether this is good, bad, medium, mediocre, whatever it is, once your why, you are inspiring, you are having a great capability of a great leadership, I think rest of the things will not matter, and it will really take you to the success of, maybe it is not visible. It takes a lot of time, right, to reach here. And this is where your results would be seen. I don't say that the tools are not important, they are. This means I'm talking about being adaptive. Being adaptive. Most of my leadership roles are being adaptive. So once my why becomes very, very strong, no matter what comes to my way, I become adaptive to my challenges. So every day, the challenges are not same, right? Once you are adaptive, then you inspire great action. You are adaptive, you open solutions which you never had before. Because your why is strong, now your why, you are determined to do things. Maybe your tools, you don't have sufficient tools sometimes. Sometimes you have. Irrespective of your situation, you are determined to be adaptive of flexible approaches you have, and you move ahead to dive into action. And sometimes you have plan ready, sometimes things just come into your way all of a sudden, but yet you don't, you don't budge. You continue whatever you are doing in that effective manner as possible. And that is where I feel is required in this era of changing, ever changing educational institutions. That is required. So, this is what I wanted to say in a nutshell, that for whatever changes we are having in this 21st century of our educational setups, we really need effective leaders to take that why forward in such a manner that it is not only fruitful to you, but to the entire setup, including our learners. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farah. If you can stop sharing your screen, maybe the viewers can, when they see the recording. Yeah, now I can see what you have written on the whiteboard. Like that time we were not able to see. Fine. Yes. So since there are no audience today, so I would like to ask you some questions. So Ms. Farah, what inspired you to focus on leadership in education?
Certain circumstances which came into my way, which were very, very spontaneous. So, such spontaneous actions, sometimes you don't have a plan. Just when I was concluding the talk, I said that inspired me to, have a like, why do I, that inspired a curiosity in me, that why are some people so effective as leaders? You know,
Mhm.
that
So
is.
in your view, ma'am, how has educational leadership changed in recent years? If you have observed in your career years.
Yes. So, if you ask me, yes. So, as I was saying that earlier, people, the educational setup was in such a way that it was very, very constant. Nowadays, educational setups have changed by having so many dynamics or changes happening every day. And if you see, there are so many careers evolving which were earlier not there. So I see in education, the change, if I see, is too rapid. And the leadership which is required will no longer be the same which earlier it used to be. For example, now we have focus on, earlier it would be only annual day or some celebrations. Nowadays, we have lot of student oriented events. Earlier, teacher would go, they would host the event. Now we have students hosting the event. Is that not something very peculiar for this era? Yes, it is. So I have seen that, okay, you can be a good leader, okay, with experience and all. But how do you inspire your students to become a good leader? That was the new thing. When your students are hosting sports day, annual day, they are going and making, whatever requirements are needed. So I think this is very much changed in recent, that leadership is not only very authoritative, it has not been restrained or just cornered to one aspect. It has gone to a very multiple or multifocal aspects.
So last question now from my end, ma'am. What advice would you give to new educational leaders?
My advice would be that you may not see your results in the beginning. Okay, so they say Rome was not built in a day. So I think that is very much applicable when you become a new leader, like, or new, not I would not say new leader, but when you enter in a new leadership role, you are very, very excited and you want instant results sometimes. So sometimes you may get instant results, but sometimes it may happen that you are not getting an instant results, whatever you may have worked or worked upon, or whatever efforts you may have put in. Just try to wait. In this fast modern time, we have forgotten how to wait. So leadership becomes a journey. They say, that life is a journey. So I think leadership is also a journey. Destination is not that important. The result is not that important. Whatever, I pray that you reach your destination very well. That is another part. But the thing is, instead of focusing on the results, enjoy with the people around you. That is my advice.
Thank you, Ms. Farha. Thank you for the talk and for patiently answering all the questions, ma'am. We will end the session now. Before we end it, you want to mention anything else?
I just want to thank you, Ms. Pravina.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing your knowledge for the second time on our platform again, ma'am. Have a great day.
Okay.